Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. That's like the first rhyme they teach you. You know, they teach you that one right from year dot, right from year zero. It's like the first one, right? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. Maybe there's a reason that's the first one they teach you. Because of the wisdom. The wisdom in such a simple line. Such a simple verse. Don't forget to enjoy the dream. Once you've discovered this whole thing is just a dream, this whole thing was an illusion the whole time. I spent all that time, I was so serious about everything. So serious, so tied up in ultimately silly things. And then coming to that realization, that conclusion, oh, hang on, it was all but a dream this whole time. It's easy to fall into the trap of feeling a little disheartened by this. People might feel like, so what, my struggle, my suffering was somehow irrelevant? My pain was just illusory this whole time? I mean, people might feel, you know, like a bit of a fool almost. I know I did. I was like, oh, what? All that time? But don't get disheartened. Don't fall into the trap of that pessimism. Oh, no, don't go. Look. I hope my cheap camera can pick this up. Look at all these birds. Oh, I'm sorry. They'll come back. There's a bird feeder there. I disturbed them. Sorry, birds. Have a nice day. They'll be fine. They'll go right back to it. So, don't forget to enjoy the dream. Don't forget to enjoy it. It's about living the implications of what you've discovered on the spiritual path. Live the understanding. Don't just allow it to sit in your mind as a nice idea. It has to be more than a nice idea. It can't just be an intellectual thing. It has to be felt and experienced deeply and consistently. It has to be experienced as the reality that it is. The implications of the understanding, because I believe there's probably quite a few people that found the spiritual path and really had some real, quite profound awakenings, quite profound understandings, just feeling more enlightened, and the rigidity of the mind fell away and became more open, more clear, and truly had a real experience, but continue to live in a manner that doesn't support the implications of what's been seen to be real. So I think it takes some courage, I think. It just takes a little courage to just really truly live the implication of the understanding, to really enjoy the dream. How to do this? Well, the clue is in the rhyme. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. So in this analogy, the body and mind is a boat. We don't have to push a boat. We don't have to drag it anywhere. We don't have to force it to do anything. All you have to do is row gently, and remember to go down the stream. It doesn't say row, row, row your boat forcefully up a stream. That's not going to lead to a nice merry dream. Row, row, row your boat strenuously against the tide. Suffering, 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 suffering. Life is very real. You know, that's the... I'm surprised that's not the rhyme they teach kids, to be honest with you. Because that's the mentality most people are in. Wow, look at this.
Morning.
Morning. Oh, hello. Hey. Oh,
Come on, Nelly.
what a pretty bow. So, that's the clue in the song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Go with the flow of life. Go with the flow of life. Whatever arises within your field of experience, we row, row, row down the stream merrily. Merrily, 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 merrily. Because ultimately, life is but a dream. And that is the implication of the understanding. Never forget, it's only ever the present moment. There's no past. It was never here. There's no future. The past can only exist in the mind as memory, and memory arises now. The future can only exist in the mind as prediction, apprehension, worry, and imagination. And that too only can arise within the now. It's only ever here, only ever now. And although we appear to be constrained by the limitations and the sufferings of the individual body-mind, as we come to understand, the individual body-mind is constantly in a state of fluctuation and a state of change. A state of growing, a state of changing, a state of constant evolution. And yet, your experience of life is the witnessing of this change and evolution happening. Only we come to believe that we are the doer or the facilitator intellectually of this change and evolution, but coming to the full, clear and very powerful recognition that actually you are just the witnessing presence of this evolution and change. You are liberated from the ever-changing temporary nature of the apparent world. The apparent world is subject to birth and death, life, illness, decay, pain, suffering, ultimately suffering. But although the body and mind is at the mercy of the ravages of time, consciousness, the witnessing presence of awareness before the appearance of change, is not subject to suffering. And that is what is meant by life is but a dream. Where is reality? So don't forget to enjoy it. Don't forget to enjoy it. That's the point. Because it's the mind that goes to this place. When we get to the place of true, experienced, deep understanding. Let's go. Sunny's on. Cyclops, visor, eye lasers. When we get to the point of true, deep, felt, experienced understanding, one of the final objections of the mind, one of the final barriers before you finally do it and truly liberate and go and live the free, infinite expanse of the universe, before you finally get to check out of all of this suffering, the horrors of the narrative of this individual body-mind, the barrier that the mind presents at the last chance saloon is to say, yes, but if life is just an illusion, if this is just a dream, then what's the point? What's the point of it all? If I'm infinite universal consciousness and the body-mind, the Corin Bryant body-mind pattern of consciousness was just an illusion this entire time, then moving forward, well, what's the point? What's the point of doing anything? What's the point of living? What's the point of the universe? What's the point of all this? What's the point of everything? And you have to understand that is not a part of the spiritual understanding. That sentiment of, well, then it's all pointless, then it's all meaningless, is the mind. This sense of, well, what's the point then? What was the point of all my previous suffering? Does it not mean anything? That's the mind. That is the mind sensing its own dissolution is imminent. Cyclops eye lasers back off. It is the mind that can, because the mind is very clever, obviously, that's what the mind is. It's clever. And because it's clever, it's predicted what's coming next, even if you're not fully cognizant of it just yet. So the mind can predict this is what's coming next, and it can sense its own dissolution, so it's going to try absolutely everything to prevent that from happening. But only because it's confused, only because it's used to being in charge, and habitually it's used to being centre stage. Because it can sense its own dissolution, it comes up with every reason that it can to cease this practice, to cease this understanding immediately. And one of the ways it does it is by saying, well, by adopting this philosophy of our infinite universal consciousness, non-duality, Advaita, if we adopt that, then everything's going to become pointless and everything's going to become meaningless. I'm going to show you this dinosaur over here. Get a bit of production value in here. Morning. So, because the mind doesn't want to give up its job, basically, it's going to say, oh yeah, but then it's all pointless, and we'll start to go into this tendency towards nihilism, which is that sort of, oh well, there's no meaning to anything, there's no point, nothing matters, it's just nothing. Because the mind wants to say, yep, and nothing is depressing. It's a depressing way of looking at things. But it's not true. And that's not a spiritual or enlightened understanding. The spiritual and enlightened understanding never leads to nihilism and depression. There's a reason the Buddha's smiling. You know? There's a reason that the Buddha smiles. It's a lightness, an energy, a joy, And I have to say, it's a childlike feeling, but not childish. It's not being immature. It's more a sense of that same childlike wonder, that childlike joy, that childlike feeling of freedom and play and joy. Now, I promised you that I would show you a dinosaur, and here it is. Ba 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 ba. So don't say that I don't have production values in my videos, because you know that little bit of special effects right there just cost me £1 million. So the childlike wonder, the childlike joy, is this predominant feeling. Now, understand, I'm quite an extroverted kind of guy, all right? So it tends to manifest in quite a dramatic outwards direction. But for you, you might be more of an introverted sort of person, or shy, which is absolutely fine. Nothing's really going to change about any of that. It could just be a felt experience on the inside. It can just be it can manifest. Nobody on the outside, nobody would ever really know that anything's changed. Nothing's really shifted in the way you behave, the way you speak, or anything. There might just be a deeper sense of peace within you. But many people come to this enlightened understanding and you'd never really be able to tell. Sometimes I suspect there might be more than you think out there that have woken up. I sometimes see them, I sense them. I was on a bench the other day, looked around, just for one brief second, I just made eye contact with this older lady, and she just nodded and I nodded back, and a sense of peace just washed over me, and I thought, there's one, there was one. You'd never be able to tell, but she was absolutely a jnani. She knew, she understood, and all it took was that one brief second, and there was a recognition there between both of us. Have I actually wandered into Jurassic Park? Where am I right now? Anyway, you row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. We got to do the merrily bit. Don't forget to enjoy it. You've probably worked incredibly hard in your spiritual practice, and you might not be feeling... That's better. Sorry about that, my camera just ran out of battery. That is why we bring spares. I don't know the exact point that the camera cut out, so I'll backtrack. Merrily, 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 merrily. We've got to remember the merrily part. The merrily part is important, because I believe if you have found that you've come to that spiritual awakening and awareness, and then kind of found yourself in that slump, that blankness, not necessarily unpleasant, it's a more peaceful space, but you might be thinking, but when does the bliss happen? When does the peace happen? I wonder if sometimes the mind has kind of very subtly come back in. The mind has subtly misinterpreted the understanding, potentially deliberately misinterpreted the understanding, because it's going to want to discredit the understanding at any turn, because the understanding, the awakening, the enlightenment is going to serve notice upon the mind, and the mind will have to sling its hook. Again, British slang, you gotta sling your hook means to get out of here, to get lost. So I wonder if sometimes on the spiritual path, if you have found, my arm a break, if you have found, yeah, you can see the brontosaurus that I hired in the background there somewhere. mind is going to try to discredit the understanding as best as possible. Sorry, the wind's picking up from this direction. And so that flatness, that lack of energy, that lack of joy is actually the mind trying to misinterpret, deliberately misinterpreting the enlightenment and saying, now we've understood that nothing matters. Now we've understood that there's no point to everything. Now we've understood that life is meaningless, that all of your suffering was for nothing, that it was just pointless and miserable and nasty and horrible and everything just sucks. That's the mind. That's not enlightenment. That is not awakening. On experiencing the true recognition that life is but a dream, just watch out for that little subtle mind trap. Because you're here now, right? You did it. You did it. It's done. It's over. There will be no more suffering. There will be no further problems. So, what to do now? Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. You might as well. That's the only sane thing that I can think to do. That's the only rational thing that I can think to do in life. It doesn't make a great deal of sense, really, to live your life in a miserable way. That doesn't make any logical sense. And you might think, yeah, but I have to. I have to live life in a miserable way because this, that, and the other. Because, because we live in a society. And because we live in a society, we have to be miserable, right? No, that is the trap. That is the trick of the mind that is keeping you miserable. It's not the external world. Good grief. What am I doing now? There we go. Beautiful. It's probably making a racket. Sorry team. Sorry. Hey, there we go. Much better. You don't have to live in a miserable way at all. That's a total false belief of the mind. It doesn't matter where you live or what's going on for you. When you realize that life is but a dream, that's when you start lucid dreaming, right? You ever been in a dream and you've realized you're dreaming, and all of a sudden when you start lucid dreaming, you don't suddenly create a nightmare for yourself. When you start lucid dreaming, you start flying. You do all of the fun things that you couldn't do before. When you realize it's a dream, that's when it starts to become the most enjoyable. When you've realized that it's the illusory nature of it all, you might as well enjoy it. You might as well enjoy it. And don't let the mind trick you into saying, oh, well, everything's pointless then. If it's just an illusion, then what's the point? Give it a rest. I think we've had enough of that, haven't we? Haven't we had enough of that? Now, this is not to say that you suddenly go crazy, because that's another trap that the mind can do. The mind can go, right, well, if there's no rules, if this is all just a dream and I don't exist and nobody else exists, then I don't have to behave in a moral way anymore. I can let go of all those moral constraints and all of that ethical stuff that was keeping me so constrained. It doesn't work like that, because upon the awakening, you won't feel like doing that sort of stuff anymore. You realize that acting in an immoral and unethical way was actually the mind trying to escape from its own suffering. But now that you have escaped your suffering by eradicating the mind, nope, Cyclops eye laser's back on. Now that you have eradicated suffering by removing the mind, there's no longer any urge, there's no longer any draw towards any immoral or unethical activity. And I would say, I would add as well, just because you've awakened, it doesn't mean that you now have liberty to be inconsiderate of other people. A lot of when you've come into the spiritual understanding, you obviously sometimes feel like want to talk about it to like everyone that you bump into, but this sort of talk can make a lot of people uncomfortable, and it's not a... I read it was in one of the Zen texts that said it's immoral to preach to people that don't want to be preached to, and I agree. I think this isn't for everyone, this teaching, so it's not a... And just because you found liberation, you found freedom, that doesn't give you the right to just act in a wild, inconsiderate, boorish manner. You don't suddenly have license to just become a total jerk, for want of a better word. I was trying to think of a more a better word for it, but jerk, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it doesn't give you the right to be like that. If that started to happen, then that's not... You've probably met people like that. You know, sometimes people just are using spirituality as an excuse to just behave in a manner that is actually quite unpleasant to be around. There's a lot of traps like that, but that's probably a video for another time. I think that's probably everything today, because this battery's about to run out as well. I need to invest in some better equipment, clearly. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. I'll let you finish that one. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care. Be well. Stay present.